How's it going? Derek Sire here with Jim Schaefer, L3 Podcast. We got episode 7 coming up, but we got something really special for you all this time. We are going to start a series, wonderful series. It's not a preacher series. We're not going to preach on the L3 Podcast.
Well, we might.
Just a little bit.
Just not today.
And we're going to do it without the organ. And we're going to have lots of fun talking about leadership, as always, learning how to love, learn, lead, keep those things kind of rolling through our conversation sort of intermittently, no matter what we're talking about. But specifically, we want to talk about personal leadership, individual leadership.
Individual leadership.
How can I be a leader by myself, unattached to anything? What does that look like in everyday life?
So one of the things we have to do, first of all, is to dispel the myth that leadership is based on positional power.
I agree.
So many people, when they think of a leader, they think of somebody who has power over them, their manager, their manager's manager,
Right.
the C-suite in the organization, the CEO, President of the United States,
Right.
whatever. But we need to make sure that we fully understand that really leadership is not so much about positional power. Yes, that does exist. That'll be the next episode that we talk about. But for this episode, we're talking about individual leadership, which is really based on influence.
I agree.
And how you influence those around you. And the thing that really brings up is that when you ask yourself, well, am I a leader? Well, the answer is yes.
Always.
Yes, it is always yes, because you have influence over somebody. You know, even if it's convincing somebody to get, Coke instead of Pepsi, or to try the fish at a restaurant. Your waiter is a leader. He may come to you, your server may come to you and say, we have a special today. We have, this really great fish dish that you guys might like. And he has influenced you, obviously, if you order it, but he is trying to influence you to purchase that. Right. So he is a leader. You are a leader, regardless of, for a long time, I've always said you're a leader regardless of where you are in the organization, but it really is regardless if you're even in an organization.
Leader,
right.
Always. And so I think today we want to kind of focus in on two things. We want to clarify when we may use these different terms, we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with the terms that we're using. So when we think of individual and personal leadership, those things may be intertwined. We really mean individual leadership, but we may throw out personal in there, and we'll clarify the two. And then the other two terms that we'll throw out is either positional or organizational.
Yes.
Individual, personal, positional, organizational. Now, I'm going to explain just a little bit what we mean when we say personal or individual, and then Jim will come behind me and clean up positional and organizational.
Sure.
When we think about individual or personal leadership, just like Jim says, it infiltrates every area of our life. Oftentimes, we think about leadership being isolated to a position that we have, and so we're leaders because we're put in a position or because we fit within a system. Jim's going to talk about that a little bit more. I want to talk about what it looks like to be a leader as an individual, isolated by yourself in everyday life, right? And the things that we'll talk about are how are we leaders at home? How are we leaders amongst our friend group? What does that look like at work? And then we'll wrap it up in the fourth episode or the fourth podcast of this series. Individual leadership. I can be a leader walking down the street, picking up trash. I can be a leader at home in my marriage as a father. I can be a leader in many of those capacities. The reason we say individual/personal is because I make those decisions. That hasn't been given to me by someone. That is not set up within an organizational structure. That is something that I take upon myself, and I say that I am going to be a leader in this way. It's individual. It's a personal decision. It's something that I acknowledge, that I take upon my own shoulders, and I do it. Some people may do it because they have to. People may do it because there's a need for it. They may just see the need and they do it. And we'll talk about what that looks like at home. But individual/personal leadership has to do with me and my decision. Jim, tell us a little bit more about positional or organizational leadership.
Well, positional organizational is exactly what you think of. So when we think about the stereotype of leader is somebody who has a positional power over you or somebody else, somebody that we think of a manager. We could get into the differences of management versus leadership. That's a whole different conversation. That probably has its own series.
Yes, sir.
But when you think about organizational leadership, you now no longer affect just yourself, you're affecting somebody else.
Right.
And so whether you almost everybody reports up to somebody else, but whether you're just reporting to somebody else or if you have people who report to you, then your decisions that you make no longer affect just yourself. They affect people below you.
Right.
They affect people above you, and they affect people on either side of you. So your peers. So
That's
your
really
peers,
good.
your subordinates, and of course your superiors.
So leadership within a structure, within a group, within an organization, it can overtwine, but that's different from our perspective. And what we're using as a launching pad for discussion today is different than personal and individual. So the very first thing we want to talk about when it comes to this type of leadership is, what does that look like at home? What does it look like at home? And I can think of 3, 4, 5 things in ways that I'm a leader in my own home. Now, my situation may be a little bit different than yours because I'm married, I have children, I have a job or 3, and I have lots of passions and hobbies. And so the examples that I throw out are they may not be exclusive to me, but they may not identify with you. What we want to make sure today is that we throw out enough examples to where you can then reflect. You can have this introspective reflection and figure out areas that you lead in your own personal life at home, right? And so
Yes.
let's kind of ping pong this. I'll say one, and then I'll throw it to you, and
Okay.
then we'll throw it back and forth. So
Shoot.
the first area,
Or does that be serve?
serve.
I
or
said
sh-
shoot. You
'cause we're
said
doing
you said ping pong.
Ping pong. Yeah, we'll throw it back and forth. That's right. I'll hit it. You hit it back. I'll serve first. How about that?
Sweet.
So when I think about being a leader in my own home, I think about being the one that's responsible for the cleanliness. I'm the guy that washes the dishes, that washes the clothes, that straightens up the house. I vacuum, I sweep, I mop. I'm the guy that.
Sharon, don't listen.
He's talking to his wife. And so I'm the guy that does that. Now, this happens where we talk about formal, informal. We'll talk about that on the back end,
Right.
But we'll kind of weave that through. So an informal person would say, you know what, the dishes need to be cleaned. I'll do it. The trash needs to be taken out. I'll take it out.
Yes.
The floor is dirty. I'll sweep it. I'll mop it. Right. The clothes are piled up. I'll wash them. That's kind of this informal approach to individual leadership. A more formal approach would be, all right, my wife's name is Takia. Takia and I sit down at the table and I talk to my wife and I say, hey, listen, we have some chores that need to be done. I am over trash. You are over the dishes. I am over the laundry. You're over the living room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so when I think of me being an individual leader, a personal leader at home, I'm the guy, whether it has been formal or informal, I'm the guy that's over cleanliness. What about you?
So for us, I think one of the things that we do is we do kind of have more of a formal approach. I will admit that I am one to talk a lot about, if you see something that's out of place, pick it up, put it up. Trash.
Regardless of who put it there.
Who put it there?
Okay.
I am also probably one of the worst at actually accomplishing this, and it's frustrating for my family sometimes. It's frustrating for me, and like we've said to our viewers before, sometimes we will get real.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where this is kind of a real moment for me.
And that's real.
I'm being honest, in that I'm not the cleanest person in the world. I can cook. I love to cook, and I will cook. But Sharon and I, for example, have an agreement that I will do the dishes and clean the kitchen after meals, and regardless of who cooks, but I will do that, and she will always pull them out of the dishwasher and put them away. Because for me, I don't think about the dishwasher or putting things away when I get ready to cook. So I just kind of ignore it, not on purpose, but that doesn't click with me that I need to put dishes away before I can use them again.
Right.
So that was frustrating for her, and so we made that agreement to where if the dishes need to be done, I will make sure they get into the pardon me while I smack the microphone while trying to use my hands as well as effective as Derek does. But now I've lost my train of thought, Derek. See what happens.
Sorry about that.
No, but it so she doesn't like to come into the kitchen getting ready to eat and all the plates are in the dishwasher or all the forks are in the dishwasher.
Right.
So when the dishes are clean, she puts them up.
Yeah.
If they're dirty, I clean them up. And so that's kind of what we have. And of course, we share the cooking duties probably pretty close to 50-50.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the things that works out for us.
When I think about, man, I'm taking notes as you're talking. You you did something really well on social media the other day, and you shared a post. Actually, it was on LinkedIn. You shared a post about a young man that was in a meeting, and his boss completely threw him under the bus.
Yeah.
And your tagline said, "Leaders never do this."
Absolutely.
Take note, right? If you absorb the blame, if you are upfront with what happens, then you gain fans. You gain people that will follow you. They won't fear you or anything like that. And so one of the first things that I noticed just now when you were talking about that is you made an admission. You know what? This is a shortcoming of mine. I acknowledge it. I don't like it. I want to get better. I plan on getting better. But this is what it is.
Right.
And I think leaders that are going to be following people, the two things I want to say: one, they have to be willing to do it, and then two, they have to be able to accept it when people do it for them or to them. And so I'll clarify that. If someone stands up and says, "Hey, boss, I messed up," that's completely my bad. As a leader, we take that as a leading moment. That's a coaching moment for us.
Yep.
Instead of us pushing them down even further and like, you know what, you did mess up and you're wrong and you'll never get another opportunity to lead. Leaders will not only say, hey, you know what, I messed up, but when people acknowledge their faults as well, they'll lead them through that.
So when thinking about that, what does that look like when you are at home?
That's really good.
And something happens when you're at home. You know, say you make a mistake or you don't do something or you don't do something correctly or whatnot. So what does that conversation kind of look like with your family at home?
Got a perfect example. So I'm the clean guy at home. My wife is orderly. She's orderly, but she's not neat. She's not clean.
Okay.
Like when it's time to put everything up and when I'm asking her where stuff is, she knows exactly where it is. But she's the person that comes home and it's shoes off, socks off, back down, purse down, dishes on the table. Like she's that type of person. Now, when she gets to the bedroom and I ask her where all those things are, she's going to tell me exactly where they are. But I'm the guy that comes up behind her and I'm like, all right, here's your shoes. Here's your... Now, she's not a pig. She's not a slob.
Right.
I want to clarify that. One, because I want to be honest about the situation. Two, she's going to listen to this, right? So
Right.
I just want to make sure that
Be nice to your wife when you're doing public speaking.
exactly. I
Just
want to
saying.
clarify that. but one of the things that I've learned to do is that when I pick those items up, I don't follow her and tell her that she left them down.
And nitpick.
I don't nitpick. So that's leadership from both ends. One is do the work, get the job done. If that is your responsibility, do it. Right. On the other side, she says, "Hey, thanks for picking those up for me. I apologize." And so both sides of this leadership component, being leaders at home, once again, we're talking about individual leadership,
Right.
personal leadership. This is decisions that I make. When I absorb those responsibilities as my duties, I corral those things of cleanliness in my home and I say, you know what, I'm going to take over that. That's me. Then I have to make sure I own those things and then also that I don't lord that over everyone else. Right? I'm the clean guy. You left your shoes out. You left this on the table. You why is the microwave dirty? Well, quit. Who didn't put a new toilet paper roll on the? You know, like that's not me.
Oh, you went toilet paper.
Toilet paper. Oh,
So
wait,
I get
over
that.
under toilet paper.
I used to be an over guy.
Are you an under guy now?
I'm kind of an under guy now, but to be honest, as long as it comes off, I'm good.
Wait, what comes off?
The toilet paper.
Oh, okay.
Derek. Okay, so I have a question for you, real quick. So I want to pause, and I want to. You talked about lording your do-gooderness,
Right.
for lack of a better thing. But so you are the good guy at cleaning, and
Yes.
let's assume for a second that you are the only one who's really good at it in your house.
Yes.
Kids are not generally real good about it.
Right.
You said that Takia is orderly, but she's not a neat freak, so she's not always going through and cleaning things up,
Right.
left and right. So you've done so, and your kids come through and they dump their shoes on the floor, or they dump a jacket on the floor, a beanie on the floor, or their school books, and you've asked them to move it, and they don't. So you move it because you're kind of tired of looking at it. So you move it,
Or I yell occasionally.
or and that happens. I mean, so there's that. But so what happens when they pull their school books out again? And they set them on the floor where they were doing their homework, and they get finished, and they walk away from it a second time.
Yes, this is great. I've gotten a habit now. Instead of calling them to come, or instead of me picking it up, I call them back. I say, "Hey, Nia, Ethan, you guys left your books on the floor." They come back, sorry, Dad, pick them up. Or I have to say, hey, Nia and Ethan, you left your books on the floor. They're like, okay, can we finish this? And I'm like, okay, go ahead and finish that. When you're done, go pick your stuff up. Or I mean, any variation of that. So there's a part, and I see what you did right there. That was really good. I think there's a part of leadership where you aren't being the best leader that you can be if you aren't leading people in how to get better. Right? And so if I continue to pick everything up and do that without taking those moments and making them leadership or learning moments, then I become a enabler. Right? And I don't become the best leader I can be. So
you become the magic cleaning fairy.
I do. And nobody appreciates that because that's just what I do.
That's right.
And it transforms from being a leader to almost, now, I almost said servant, but leaders are servants.
Absolutely.
Right. I agree with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But I think when you start just taking on the responsibilities without making sure that they're learning and leading opportunities, I think that you miss the full potential of the moment.
Yes.
All right, so we talked about cleaning, we talked about cooking. Let's throw out a few more things. We want to make sure that we respect the time of our listeners, and so let's throw out a few more and wrap this thing up.
So I want to change your perspective for just a second.
Let's do it.
You are no longer Derek the dad.
I'm Derek.
You are now Derek the child.
That guy was a fun guy, and by fun I mean
too much
mischievous.
Fun. So from the eyes of a child, see, because like I said earlier, individual leadership, you don't have to be part of an organization.
That's true.
And it does not matter if you're in an organization. It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old. It doesn't matter if you are 10 years old. You have an opportunity to lead in many situations and even lead up.
That's true.
When you are a child. And we can get into that, but that may be kind of the wrap up because there's some meat to that. So you are one of your kids,
right,
and you've noticed something is out of place. Perhaps it's your books. Perhaps it's somebody else's books. Perhaps it's a coffee cup that Daddy left on the couch for the 300th time. That Daddy be me, not you, Daddy, because you wouldn't do that. But
I would not do that.
You would not do that, but I would do that. So and you have, or so Dad has harped on you about keeping your stuff clean, right? Hey, can you come get this? You forgot this or whatever. Now, what can you do as, and it may have an obvious answer, it may not, but as the kid, what can you do to lead in a situation such as that?
That's good. My kids take every opportunity to show me that they have learned the lesson. I say every opportunity, many opportunities. And they do it in several different ways. One, they may pick up an item without being told, and they'll just do it. And I'll come back and I'm like, okay, they do listen to me. I am someone of importance. I'm not just a card that swipes and buys items.
It is getting through to them, yes.
Another way that they do it is they pick it up and they come show me that they picked it up. They show me that they picked it up. Hey, Dad, look, I picked up my book. I picked up Mom's socks. And they sit there and they wait for this look of gratification or this sort of congratulations.
The attaboy.
Yeah, this high five. And I softball toss them a great job. Thank you very much. Very seldomly. The rest of the time I'm like, well, did you get the other thing? Right? And they're like, oh, and they go back out and they do their thing, right? And the last thing I've noticed them do is that they'll do it. They won't come show me, but they'll tell me later. So they either do it, and I'll come back through and I'll see that it's gone, or they'll pick it up and they'll come show me, or they'll pick it up, they won't say anything, and then later they'll be like, hey, did you notice that? And I'm like, okay, well, I'll see what you did there.
Right.
So I think as a kid, Derek as a kid, I can see myself having done one and or all three of those, not only as a child but as an adult as well. Hey, boss, I did the so and so subtitles without you telling me. Right. Or I take some initiative and do something that I know needs to be done, right? That they prefer to be done a certain way, right? And I think there's different ways to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that we can do as parental leaders, as individual leaders at home, or as even leaders in the workforce. Right. One of the things, and I read a book recently called the 5 love languages of leaders or of the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
because there are love languages for that.
That's
One
true.
of the things that people like is just like the 5 love languages for marriage
Mm-hmm.
and for couples is words of affirmation.
Yes.
Right. So they like to have that attaboy, that yeah, me too. I appreciate those.
Yes.
And they are far and few between.
I agree.
Few and far between. So, so you mentioned that sometimes you'll say, okay, well, good job, thanks for picking that up,
Mm-hmm.
but you forgot that other thing over there.
Yes.
So that's kind of a negative reinforcement because now you're no longer. So anything you say after the word "but"
Mm-hmm.
negates anything you said before the word "but."
Yes,
Right.
I can agree somewhat with that.
Right.
I think that it's I think keeping the learning curve not steep but gradual.
Mm-hmm.
I think is very important. I think that when we have those but moments, we have to be careful what comes after, of course, or even putting it there, right?
Right.
Because it could negate everything that you said. But I also think we have to know people as well. And I think that if we when I did a presentation once, and I think I told you about this. It was called "Your Mama Jokes, Spankings, and 8th Place Trophies." I gave a speech here in Oklahoma City at the Lyric Theater, Ignite OKC. That was my spiel. It was "Your Mama Jokes," it was spankings, and 8th Place Trophies. And I talked about how this generation has become so sensitive. I say this generation over time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want to use sensitive in a way that that implies you can't complain,
Right.
or you can't bring up
Right.
what's wrong or what's happening. I do say that in that they're not used to resistance, and we can't disagree, because if we do,
Mm-hmm.
I'm right and you're wrong, or you're saying that you're right and I'm wrong. And I think that when it comes to this leadership component of training and taking these learning opportunities, I think that it's several ways it can be done. Now, as a parent, when my child brings me something that they did and they did it well, whether it's a spelling bee, a spelling test,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, "Dad, look, I got a 90%, which means I got 9 out of 10 words right."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Great job. What's the other word you missed?" And they show me the word, and I'm like, "You know how to spell that?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "I know."
We've had that conversation 100 times
We've had
too.
that
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it's like, I think that is a but moment. And so it just depends.
Yeah, so I agree with that to some extent. It's something like that. It's a little bit different, and hey, congratulations, good job on getting an A,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you turn it into, but you should have got 100.
But that's not what I said.
It's not what you said. So that's not necessarily a but moment. So
Right.
what you did as a parent and as a leader in the home is you said, well, what was the other word?
Yeah.
No, I'm curious. Do I even know how to spell it?
Uh-huh.
Sort of thing. So what was the other word that you missed? And it's darn it, we worked on that. You knew how to spell that one. Oh, nerves must have got you, or
Yeah.
you forgot, or whatnot. So, but see, I just threw a butt at you. But when you look at other situations where you really did a good job on this, but you only did a good job on half of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to kind of be careful. And I kind of see what you were, thinking about the 8th place trophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of get that in that, thanks for picking up the sock.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been more helpful, however, if you'd picked both of them up. You only
Yes.
picked up one sock.
Great job.
It would, appreciate that. It would have been more helpful.
Right.
So instead of saying but, we can keep the but out of it and then and turn it around into a teachable moment at the same time with our kids. It's I
agree.
really appreciate you throwing that trash away. It would have been more helpful if you had taken the trash can out that is now full because you threw that one thing away.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that those are really good. Those are really good notes, especially not only in parenting but in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're learning people, if we're thinking about people, and we're trying to understand people and how to lead them, not only from an individual perspective in our homes, amongst our friends, in our communities, but on jobs, which is transferable. We talk about that all the time.
Right.
I think that that's a great approach. And so maybe the but, if we feel a but moment coming, then that should it should spark us to be more creative with whatever's coming afterwards. I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yes.
If we feel a butt coming on, right? As leaders, we pause. We take that moment to pause, and we say, "Hey, you know what? Thank you for getting that sock." In my mind, but you didn't get the other one. But out loud, it says, "Hey, can you grab that other one for me as well?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, "Hey, is there a match to that sock? Where's the match to that sock?" Oh, awesome. Now they come back with the other one.
Socksmatch.com.
Socksmatch. There you go. And so it's like, I think there are creative ways to do that. And that's something, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that I do often. And I feel like I can become more creative in the ways that I lead at home, in the way that I lead with the things that I've absorbed as my responsibilities. I think there are always ways to get better in whatever area of life we're leading, whether it be at home, whether it be at work, whether it's in our friendships and social situations. I think there's always a better way. And you, my friend, challenged me today to become a better leader at home.
Well, that's what we do. You're welcome, sir. That's what we do. We challenge each other, and we want to challenge you guys. We want to make sure that you get something out of this and that you can have actionable items to take back and to make yourself better. And one thing that I want to make sure that you understand is that when you realize you've got something to do and something that you can change about yourself, realizing it is not anywhere close to even half the battle. That's just the very beginning. The other thing you have to be really careful about is you have to be intentional about making that change. And some of that is going to be forced repetition. You know, you have to think about, okay, I've got to say something to my kid. I don't like the way the whole thing turned out. There were some good parts. There were some bad parts of it, you know. What do I do? And pause. That pause is going to be okay. It may be awkward at first because you're used to just, you know, for me, I'm like, okay, you didn't do this right, or don't talk back, or don't ask questions, you know, you jump first, then you ask me why I'm doing it, you know, sort of thing. And that's a failure on my part. I have a tendency to be really servant leader at work, and I come home and I'm more command and control. It's like, okay, at this point, it's like, okay, just do what I want you to do. I'm tired of that, and I need to be much more intentional and force myself to slow my thought processes down to make sure that the words that come out of my mouth do more good than they do harm.
So we took a little bit longer time with this one. I think you all will appreciate the extra 3-4 minutes that we try to stay around. But we really believe that this individual leadership starts at home. It starts at home. This is one of the reasons we chose this as the very first one of this series, is because it starts at home. It starts with you being a person of integrity, of character, at home by yourself, and that out of that will overflow into other areas of your life. I really believe that. Jim, give us a final thought.
Well, like you said, Derek, everything that you do starts at home. You don't wake up in the morning at work.
I agree.
You wake up in the morning in your own bed or in a hotel room or anything, and you have to set your mind right to get that day started. And you need to commit to yourself and commit to those around you, whether out loud or just to yourself, but be committed to making yourself make these changes to be more intentional about the individual leadership that you've got. You have influence on everybody around you, up, down, side to side, and you have an opportunity to influence them in many ways. And one of that is by making sure that the words that come out of your mouth are good, making sure that your actions are good.
That's good.
You know, it's one of those things where your child will always catch you taking the grocery cart back.
Yeah.
You know, that teenager walking out to his car from the grocery store will see you pick trash up off the ground.
Yeah.
Or, you know, somebody from work will see that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but just make sure you are very intentional about leading yourself first before you can lead others.
Hey, we want to know what you guys think, what you ladies think, what you people think. Hit us up on social media. I'm Derek Sire in all avenues, Periscope, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Jim, what's your handles on there?
I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a Facebook page for the leadership coaches. Of course, we both have websites.
We do.
So just look us up. You can watch the credits after this. You'll see a lot of that information otherwise.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you likely found the podcast on theleadershipcoaches.net, and we have that information out there as well.
Let us know what you think. Being leadership at home, individual, personal leadership starting at home. What other areas do you lead at home? We want to know about those. I know we missed some. We only talked about 3 or 4. I'm sure there are so many more, but we want to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out and connect with us. We want this to be an ongoing dialogue. We don't want the conversation to stop here.
Right.
L3 Leadership, Derek Sire.
Jim Schaefer.
Until next time, see you.
You've been listening to the L3 Podcast with Jim and Derek. Be sure to check out our other episodes on theleadershipcoaches.net/podcast.